Morning, morning, everybody. Michelle is here. Today is April 20th, 2023. And April 20th is a special day. That was my dad's birthday, but my dad died in 2020. So that was his birthday, was April 20th. Now, so I think I talked about this some time ago, and it's about the boomerang effect. I think I said something about there's no such thing as a coincidence. There's no such thing as something happening by chance. There's no such thing as, um, there's really no such thing as an accident as well. There's a lot of contributing factors that causes a person to be in those particular situations at those particular times. And there's usually, there's always something to learn by understanding, well, first of all, you want to calm yourself down as always when you get into any particular situation. Just see if you can just kind of bring yourself back to reality. And once everything is settled, per se, say if you're in an accident, once that's over, or you other things happening to you where you need to deal with them, make sure you take a moment and step back and say, okay, now why did this happen? Because that's the boomerang effect usually. That's sometimes we put ourselves in certain situations is because we projected it out there. And I told you about our thoughts, the power of the thoughts. And what the powers of the thoughts do, they kind of do like a swinging wave. And like I didn't want to be so technical about it, but it's an energy. Swinging waves of energy. And anytime you project something out, it can affect the whole population. And a lot of us have missed that so much, and we always want to turn it around and say that something outside of me caused this to happen and blah blah blah. And we just, I think you'll feel better at some point privately. You don't have to share it with everybody. Where you just say to yourself, okay, there was something about my thoughts that contributed to this situation. And so I'm going to make myself aware of this from now on. You can say certain things to yourself without anybody having to know. And I think, you'll be a little bit more uh, open and more flowing if you just say, look, there was something about my thoughts that contributed to this situation right now. And, I'm going to make myself aware of it from now on, or something to that effect. Because you just don't get into a situation unless there's a boomerang effect. Now, like me, my particular situation right now is that I'm about to move on to another phase of my life, and that's fantastic for me because I did put in a lot of work to get here, to get to this moment of clarity, this moment of logical, rational, and reasonable thinking, clear thinking. Now, that doesn't absolve me from feeling the energy of you know that flows through the universe. Okay, uh, because we all are feeling it. Most of us are unconscious, though. I can get myself conscious of it and know, okay, does this belong to me? This uneasiness, this because sometimes because of we're so overpopulated, we're all thinking, our energy is all over the place, our energy is being interrupted. It's just like everything's firing all over the place. Everything's just firing, literally, all over the place. There's just pure chaos and all, in every um, area of our lives. There's just a lot, but a lot of us are unconscious, and sometimes your consciousness protects you from that. It has you going unconscious and not make you aware of it all because you probably would try to blow your head off. I'm just being real honest. Okay. Some people will be too overwhelmed with that and want to blow their heads off. So your consciousness does protect you from a lot of, I guess they call it stimuli, or just a lot of forces of energy that's coming at you constantly. Boomerangs, everything. Everything's misfiring. So yes, you're going to be, sometimes stuff is going to be laid on your chest, and then you're going to say, well, is that a part of me? Did I create that? And then I know very well what I'm creating. So I can easily dismiss anything that's coming my way that doesn't belong to me. But a lot of other people, you have to work on that. Like I said, to be a sensor and receiver. So when stuff is about to happen, relating to me, I know it. I can sense it. And all of us can do it. There's nothing magical about it. There's nothing supernatural about it. Nobody outside of me is doing that for me. That's how you work as a human. That's what a human being does. But we keep throwing everything out to somebody else. And I'm not going to say it, but we do that. We do it all the time. We worship somebody else. You ought to worship yourself, but not be arrogant about it, of course. When you're arrogant about it, that means your ego is still running the show. You're doing it. You are doing it. Nobody else is doing anything but you. You do what happens to you. Anything happening to you, you've done it. You're doing it. Okay? So the boomerang. Yeah, so if you put out love, universal love, guess what's going to happen? Okay. And if you put out hate, guess what's going to happen? And let me just say something about the people that put out so much hate. They're going to always see it in somebody else, though. That's where there's always a unconsciousness going on. They always see that somebody else is causing them to be hateful, or causing them to be this and causing them to be that. And they don't understand you're bringing all that to you. You're spreading that hate. Okay? Nobody else is doing that. So, or if you're participating in some type of hateful event, or you're participating in some type of hateful plotting, whether you're underground, in mountains, in caves, planning stuff, that's a boomerang that eventually is going to strike you as well. So again, if you don't understand the powers of that power of your thoughts, and that how much energy is involved with that, and how you're the one creating all this stuff, a lot of people will get, especially if you still have your ego there, a lot of people will get all proud of that. They a certain level of pride will step in. And so they'll start thinking they are some type of god or goddesses. They think, wow, because of the fact that they are, they have this delusion that they are, controlling things. And that's where there's so much contradiction too. Because a lot of people who worship somebody else, I say secretly, they're worshiping themselves in an arrogant fashion. Even though they say that, say for example, they say, well, God did this. I mean, I think in an arrogant way, some of them are really saying that, I did this, and not in a neutral, grateful fashion. They're saying it in arrogance, and that they're so powerful, and so that's why I get a little concerned. But that's just stuff that people have to work out. And I talked about this before, when people say that they are, because I heard someone say it on the video. As a matter of fact, as I was running through videos, saying that they're chosen, or they're highly favored, and if you think back to Moses' time, a lot of people seem to know that, from literature, from movies and stuff like that, and the people calling themselves chosen ones, and this and that and the other. There's a certain amount of pride when people say that. When people say I'm highly favored, chosen, and all these titles, there's pride with that, and that's ego based. Okay, because if they understood what, like I said, they if they were conscious enough to know what they're doing, they would immediately stop saying all of that about being chosen and highly favored and blessed and all. You would stop it immediately, because all that is just a boomerang, and at some point you're going to get hit because it's contradicting. You're worshiping somebody outside of you. You are, when you say, God did this. Okay, that's splitting off. It's so contradicting. But then in reality and secretly, you're thinking you did this. Does that make sense? I hope so. It's just a lot of contradiction in people's talking, and they're praising. Who are they really praising? And if you listen to people carefully, and this is not to be judging, this is called discerning and clearing up contradictions, and so that we can be clear and effective in how we are speaking, and more importantly, how are we thinking. If you listen to people very carefully, and when they're saying certain things, there's an ego there that's actually praising themselves, and they can care less about who's outside of them. You know what I mean? They'll call them God just because, not, but in reality they can, they think they're better than God. And I told you God is energy, but they think they're better than God because they see God in a physical image. I assume. I don't know, because it is a confusing, uh it's an unconscious confusing uh, uh, reflection of how people are thinking. And that's a hard thing to know how people are thinking anyway. I mean, that's next to impossible sometimes to know, unless you're sitting down and talking to them and you know what to ask, and ask the right kind of questions of them, and kind of uncover all of that stuff that's all all mistangled and entangled and whatever inside of them, their thoughts. It's insanity, sadly. All right, don't get offended. It's pure insanity. And at some point these people are going to fall off a cliff in ignorance, and will have to be medicated possibly, or be harmful to others, or more so be harmful to themselves. So you can't be playing around with uh, 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 believing that you are not uh, uh, accountable for what you're thinking about, even though you're projecting something else to people and confusing the hell out of me, because I can sense it. I can sense it and receive it, because I've been, I've trained myself to know how to pick that up immediately. These people are not, and so this is not a. This is, like I said, this is not to be harmful, but in most cases, when you hear people praising somebody, they're praising themselves. Okay, just keep that in mind. And that's an arrogance, and uh, you know, uh, is pride. Is, that's what that is. You know, they can actually care less about, because they see God as physical. That's why they're doing that. I'm better than the God, even though they claim they worship him. Okay, so I know that's confusing. It ought to be, because it's confusing to me. But I do everything I can to simplify things to people, so we can help, so I can help people think clearly and effectively, and so that you can regain control over your life. Okay, and regain your sovereignty, or regain your peace, and not need all this other background noise, because there's a lot of it going on. There's billions and billions of people on the planet, and we're all doing that. It's like they're playing mind games. A lot of people, when they're saying they're praising somebody, they're like playing mind games. Okay, because they know that gets them a lot of attention to say certain things. And you remember back in the day, how some men, when they're trying to pick up women, they be walking around with a Bible in their hand, and none of these men, and none of them have read it, but that's a symbolism. People, or woman too, whoever, if they're attempting to impress people. Okay, and I told you about how my dad told me back in the day, these white males, in suits, business suits, calling themselves Christians, and pretending to care about the black community and this and that and the other, and how their land was stolen. You know, so the masquerading, the masquerading is it has penetrated so deeply in black culture. The masquerading with preachers and pastors, uh, people who claimed crusaders mainly. They mainly are crusaders, you know, claiming to care so much about the community, but all they were doing is just infiltrating and taking that information back to whoever needed it, whether it was the FBI or the CIA or law enforcement. Let's be clear about that. There was a cause and effect for all of this, and why all of the cultures are in chaos. And chaos is a factor for every. Chaos is chaos, but if it's manufactured via nefarious means of people infiltrating, coming in and lying to people about how they care about the community. They used to call them snake oil salesmen. You remember that term? They be in town one day and then all of a sudden they gone. Once they get all the money they need out of you, they're gone. So we got to still think. We got to think about how things have happened and why we're at this point now. We just fell for it, and so we have to just silently say to ourselves that we contributed to this, and just be honest and say, I'm going to do everything in my power to reverse this. And it starts in your thoughts. Okay, so I just want to go ahead and put that out this morning. And I just want to send peace and love to everybody all over the universe. Be gentle, be silent, be silent sometimes about your efforts. You don't have to necessarily share all of that with people. And, be a little bit more discerning. Be more discerning and ask yourselves, what is your intentions? What are your intentions? And then, take it from there. Um, and at some point, you're going to have to be really harsh with yourself too. Build yourself up and be ready for that. To be extremely harsh about your reality and why you're in a particular reality, and how you contributed to that. You got to take some responsibility. We can't keep blaming it on everybody else. Okay? So I want to go ahead again, peace and love. And I'll be back.